Now, 2 days after being appointed Australia head coach, Eddie Jones has given Sky Sports News his first television interview in the UK. And I've been joined on set by reporter Eleanor Roper, who spoke to Jones earlier today. As mentioned, he has returned home, but how excited is he to be off elsewhere, finally got a different role and enjoying life in a different way, for sure?
Yeah, I mean, he was in very good spirits. It's been a month now since he was sacked by the RFU. He took a bit of time out. We know he went to Japan. He's back here in the UK, and it was announced late on Sunday night that he will be returning to Australia as their head coach. They sacked Dave Rennie, who was their current head coach, and he'll be taking over for 5 years. So a massive job for him. He's coached them before. Rugby fans will remember that amazing moment of Johnny Wilkinson taking that drop goal to win England the Rugby World Cup back in 2003. He was in charge of Australia at the time, and he's returning home, but he was in good spirits. He's excited to get started. End of January, his job will start. But yeah, here's a little look at what he had to say about his new job.
Obviously, I had a change in employment status at England, and the Australian Rugby Union came in and said would I be interested, and then obviously, you know, you're always interested in coaching your country, and said yes. And then, you know, we had probably discussed for the best part of a couple of weeks about what would happen next, and made a decision on Saturday night to go with it. So here we are.
I mean, how excited are you to be going back to Australia and to be taking on this job? Because it is a massive job. Yeah,
no, it's almost like it was meant to happen in a funny sort of way. Yeah, you start off, you know, I started off as a young coach wanting to coach Australia, and then that dream gets taken away. You know, you get sacked and you think, what am I going to do next? And I've had a wonderful experience coaching, you know, South Africa, in Japan, and now England. And I never really thought about going back. But then having the opportunity to do it in such a potentially golden era for Australian rugby is incredible.
One thing that really excited me about the press release was your involvement with the Wallaroos as well. So we know you're going to be head coach of Australia's men's side, but you're also going to be, I mean, tell us, what does that look like? What does it involve? How are you going to be involved in shaping the women's game in Australia?
Well, you know, the role initially, there was discussion about being a director of rugby and overseeing everything, but, you know, we want to make sure that the women's game's in good stead, and hopefully I can lend some experience to the head coach of the women's team and just, you know, be a bit of a guiding hand. You know, we saw with New Zealand what a difference Wayne Smith made to the New Zealand team, and, you know, I think maybe I can make the same sort of difference to the women's team.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? He does seem really happy, really relaxed. What we really want to know is more about his England departure, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, that was huge, wasn't it? We knew that Eddie Jones would be in his position until after this year's World Cup. The RFU had stuck by him. We know that there'd been sort of 2 poor Six Nations. They went away to Australia, got a series win this summer, but a disappointing autumn series. And I think a shock to a lot of fans that the RFU took the decision that they weren't going to stick with him and that they were going to make a change so close to a World Cup. So here's what he's had to say about being sacked by England and how that all played out.
There's obviously still a tinge of disappointment you don't get to finish a project. You know, we'd set out post the World Cup in 2019 to have a team that could win the World Cup in 2023. And there was a difference of opinion. You know, I felt we were where we needed to be, but the RFU didn't, which is their prerogative, so I don't hold any recriminations against them. But I look back with element of pride and disappointment about not finishing the job. But I think, you know, I've left England rugby in a better spot than I picked it up, and that was always the opportunity. And the second thing I'm really proud of is, you know, part of my job was to find the next England coach, and Steve Borthwick's come out of having, you know, we've worked together for a fair period of time, and he's an excellent choice and do an excellent job.
I mean, if we look back at last year, we know you had a disappointing Six Nations. We went to Australia, you got a really exciting series win there. It was a disappointing autumn. I wonder, at what point did you think, I could lose my job here? Was there a moment where you thought, OK, this has changed, or...?
Yeah, well, it probably started post 2019 World Cup. You know, the first game of the Six Nations, we get beaten, and there's headlines, coach should be sacked, And so you're thinking this is going to be a tough time. So I always knew that was sitting there, and the longer you're in the job, the more exposed you are to being sacked, I think, particularly at that level. And when you're not meeting the expectations of firstly yourself and the team, and you're not meeting expectations of the fans and the union, you know there's going to be problems. And the wind changes a little bit, the way people look at you, and when you've been in the game a while, you start to realise, well, we're probably getting closer to the end than we'd like to be.
Did you think that you could have hung on until the World Cup, though?
Well, I didn't want to hang on. I either wanted to do the job with their support or not do the job. And obviously the sport had gone, so, in the end it was a good decision for both.
Really candid, isn't he? Very open, very honest. This appointment could lead, this is going to be exciting, to a possible meeting between the two countries this September. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it gets really interesting, and I think this is, I think the fans are sort of processing one thing at a time. So, OK, he's been sacked by England. Wow, OK, Australia have fired their coach. Wow, OK, they've hired Eddie Jones. But now we're looking ahead to the Rugby World Cup, and we are probably going to see a quarter-final, potentially between England and Australia, where Eddie Jones is heading up this Australian side, facing his old English side, which is feels staggering, really. But here's what he's had to say about that encounter.
Well, a bit like coaching England against Australia. I think that, whilst I've got a lot of respect for English rugby, and I've got a lot of respect for the players. The saddest thing about being sacked was it means in a lot of ways the end of your relationship with the players, and so that's the difficult part. But in a World Cup quarter or semi, whatever it is, it's going to be fun.
We hope it's going to be fun. I'm sure it
Yeah,
will be.
exciting. End of January start, so he's off. That'll be the last we see of him until the World Cup, I imagine.
I just know it's his birthday on the 30th of January, so there we go. He starts a new year in a new job. Eleanor, that was wonderful. Thank you very much for chasing him down and getting that.